They say some secrets are buried so deep, they are never meant to surface. Truths too dark, too dangerous for the world above to bear. Tonight, I'm going to pull back the veil on one such secret. The story of the 19 priests who never said their first Mass. The lost ordination class whose fate was hidden behind stone walls in silence, locked away in a chamber beneath a seminary that should have been their sanctuary. What happened to them is not just history. It is a warning, a whispered truth about power, faith, and the lengths institutions will go to protect their deepest shadows. May 15, 1847. St. Augustine's Seminary, a fortress of faith standing isolated in rural Pennsylvania, was meant to be the birthplace of these young men's sacred vocation. Instead, it became a tomb not just for their bodies but for the truth itself. No eyewitness account, no official record, no confession or explanation would ever surface. Only a photograph remains. 19 seminarians dressed in pristine white vestments, their eyes bright with hope, standing before an altar that would swallow them whole. But the official story, an accidental fire, a tragic misfortune, is a lie. Because the ashes still whisper. Because footprints tell a different story. 19 sets entering the chapel basement, only one leaving. And the basement, sealed tight for more than a century. The key vanished. The doors locked by unseen hands. This is no mere tale of loss. This is a descent into forbidden knowledge. A revelation that fractures the foundation of what you think you know about faith, obedience, and sacrifice. Are you ready to follow me down the spiral stairwell beneath St. Augustine's Seminary? To meet the darkness that lingers there? To see the machinery of control and manipulation cloaked in holy robes? This is not for the faint of heart. This is the knowledge that changes a man forever. Because once you know what I'm about to tell you, there is no going back. The world above will seem smaller, weaker, and the shadows will no longer be a place of comfort, but of terrifying truth. Keep your eyes open, keep your mind sharp, and above all, be prepared to confront the unseen forces that shape history itself. The seminary was no ordinary institution. Founded by Bishop Francis Kenrich in 1823, it was built with the grand purpose of molding the next generation of Catholic priests to serve the restless American frontier. Its thick limestone walls and towering bell tower symbolized permanence. A fortress of divine will amid a wilderness of doubt and danger. But beneath its Gothic grandeur, an ancient secret was buried, older than any faith it professed to serve. The 19 young men of the class of 1847 were the seminary's finest, sons of immigrant families, men who had sacrificed everything for the promise of holy service. Their names were etched into the seminary's golden ledger, their faces radiant in that final photograph before ordination. Among them stood Francis Bernardetto, a linguist and scholar destined to rise beyond his peers. Thomas Kellerman, whose obedience bent toward questioning the established order, and Michael O'Brien, a soul caught between faith and doubt. But weeks before their ordination, something changed. The seminarians spoke in hushed tones of strange visions, of a 13th figure cloaked in black vestments appearing at the altar, a shadow that neither repelled nor comforted but called to them in a voice older than time. Their prayers grew restless, their dreams twisted with symbols unknown. Even Father Superior Marcus Whitmore, a man of rigid discipline and faith, began to sense a darkness creeping beneath the seminary's sacred stone. Whispers among faculty spoke of secret prayers in the chapel at impossible hours, a circle of ash on the floor around which the seminarians knelt, eyes glazed, mouths murmuring words that no Christian tongue should speak. When confronted, the young men claimed they were called by voices from beyond, that the world above was but a veil, and they were to serve a purpose far beyond ordination. What they were really preparing for was not the Massachusetts. It was a ritual older than the church itself, one hidden in plain sight beneath the altar stone, one that would bind them forever to forces the institution could neither acknowledge nor contain. This was the first step into the abyss. On the night of May 14th, the seminary was alive with expectation. Families had arrived from distant cities, inns were filled with hopeful guests, and the town of Millbrook buzzed with the promise of a historic ordination. But as darkness fell, the building itself seemed to shudder under the weight of what was to come. The usual silence of Compline was broken, not by whispered prayers, but by the tolling of the chapel's great bell. 12 tolls, then a pause, then 12 more, repeated thrice. A pattern that no clock dictated. A signal no bellkeeper should have been able to ring. The tower was locked, the key held only by Father Whitmore. Yet the bell cried out across the sleeping valley, a call to a ritual that none on the outside understood. Then came the chanting. Not the sacred Latin hymns of the church, but a low, primal invocation spoken in voices not entirely human. The sound seeped through the chapel doors, locked tight, the oak heavy and unyielding, a barrier between this world and the next. Father Whitmore, joined by his closest priests and the seminary's porter, tried to unlock the doors. The locks refused to turn, as if frozen by some unseen hand. The chanting grew louder, the voices more insistent, as footsteps echoed downward, into a space that, by all known architecture, should not exist. A secret basement, a hidden spiral stairway carved into stone older than the seminary itself. Symbols etched into the walls, glyphs from a forgotten time, older than Christianity, older than the church itself. The door to the sacred, now a gateway to something else entirely. What happened next would not be recorded in official histories. The altar itself shifted, revealing the abyss beneath. The seminarians vanished into the darkness, called by a force that promised enlightenment but demanded a sacrifice no mortal was prepared to pay. The 4 priests and the porter stood staring down into the black hole beneath the chapel, hearts pounding with a terror that no theology could explain. The air that rose from the depths was thick with a sweet, intoxicating scent that disoriented their senses, a perfume laced with the unnatural. Near the altar, Brother Thomas discovered a folded parchment, inscribed with a chilling message. To those who seek truth beyond mortal understanding, know this: the path to true enlightenment demands sacrifice beyond the weak-hearted. The 19 descend of their own free will, called by voices older than faith or creed. They serve a purpose higher than earthly ordination. Seek them not above, for their service is below. The 20th remains, the witness. No signature, no explanation, only the terrible implication that these men chose the descent. They were not victims. They were participants in a dark covenant forged in silence. Before any rescue could be attempted, the priests witnessed the impossible. The stone steps spiraling down were sealed one by one, blocks grinding into place, the abyss closing as if swallowed by the earth itself. The altar moved back into position as if never disturbed. The chapel appeared untouched, save for the scattered prayer books and the lingering scent that refused to fade. The official story would call it a tragic fire, an accident, a loss mourned and swiftly buried by grief and bureaucracy. But those who stood witness knew the truth was far darker. The church sealed the basement. The bell tower was silenced. The 19 were never seen again. What force claimed them? What secret was hidden beneath that floor? And who was the 20th witness, doomed to carry this burden alone? This is where history ends and the conspiracy begins. The fire was real. The destruction was real. But the bodies? The evidence? Gone. A cover-up of unprecedented scale shrouded the truth. Church officials arrived quickly, their investigation swift and superficial. The lamp accident story was accepted without question. The seminary rebuilt. Time moved on. Yet in the shadows, a web of silence tightened. Letters disappeared. Testimonies were altered. Archives vanished. The seminary forbade further excavation beneath the chapel, forbade mention of the incident altogether. The families of the seminarians were told only lies. And behind this veil lay a darker secret. The ordination class had been inducted not into priesthood, but into a secret society, a cultic order, bound by blood and oath to forces beyond the church's sanctified hierarchy. An order sworn to control souls, wield power beyond earthly priests, and manipulate faith itself as a weapon. The lost ordination class was no accident. They were the first sacrifice and the first initiation, the vanguard of a shadow clergy whose service to God was only a mask. The 19 never said their first Mass because they were never meant to. It is here you must decide what you believe. Is this madness? Is it a myth? Or is it the hidden truth? The story of the lost ordination class exposes the psychological control systems embedded within religious institutions, a system that demands obedience but cultivates secrecy, that hides corruption behind sanctity. It reveals a hierarchy where power is absolute and faith is a tool for manipulation. Each generation of priests that followed walked a path paved by these shadows, indoctrinated into silence, sworn to protect the unknown. And as the centuries passed, this dark order grew stronger, its influence creeping into the highest echelons of power, using sacred trust as its weapon. They mastered the art of control, mental, spiritual, and social, turning disciples into docile vessels, ensuring compliance through fear, ritual, and a twisted sense of devotion. But the 19 who disappeared that night in 1847 were the first to glimpse beyond the curtain. Halfway now, and here is where I ask you to step deeper. If you want to truly awaken to the hidden forces shaping your reality, comment below with the phrase, "The bell tolls twice." Then, comment it again, "The bell tolls twice." This simple act locks your intent. It marks you as a seeker of forbidden knowledge. It invites the algorithm to push this truth further, to others hungry for the same awakening. Because knowledge is power, but only if you dare to claim it. Now back to the depths. The existence of that sealed chamber beneath St. Augustine's Seminary hints at something older and more sinister than any official narrative. Archaeologists and historians have since speculated that beneath the seminary lies an ancient subterranean complex, possibly predating European settlement. Symbols carved into the stone walls point to pagan rites, dark cult practices, and forgotten gods. The black-vested 13th figure seen in visions by the seminarians is believed by some to represent an ancient deity or guardian of forbidden knowledge, one that demands allegiance through blood sacrifice. The power wielded in that hidden chamber is a psychological trap, binding the minds of those who enter into lifelong servitude to forces they cannot see or understand. It is a place where faith is broken down and rebuilt into a weapon of control, a crucible for forging not priests but puppets. We must confront the institutional manipulation that has allowed this secret to survive for nearly 2 centuries. The Church, as a global institution, thrives on unquestioned loyalty and blind obedience. Its authority is protected by layers of secrecy enforced through doctrine, canon law, and fear of excommunication. The lost ordination class was a test, a demonstration of how far control can extend, even to the point of erasing men who dared to look behind the curtain. The silence surrounding the 19 seminarians is not an accident but a strategic move to protect a hidden hierarchy that wields spiritual power as political leverage. And this hidden hierarchy's reach extends far beyond one small seminary in Pennsylvania. For decades, rumors circulated among clergy and laity alike of other disappearances, strange rituals, and forbidden passages beneath other seminaries and cathedrals around the world. Whispers of shadow clergy orders, of secret councils guiding not just religious doctrine but global politics, surfaced in hushed conversations and coded correspondence. The lost ordination class is but the first known instance of a phenomenon that some scholars call the veil of silence, an engineered system of psychological control and suppression designed to perpetuate an elite's power. And while the world worships the surface of faith, the true battle rages beneath, in the dark, where obedience is a chain and silence is the price of survival. The deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. This is not merely about religion. It is about power, raw, unyielding power wielded by those who understand the human psyche better than the masses ever could. The 19 seminarians were the first to be initiated into a system that uses faith as a mask for control, obedience as a prison, and sacrifice as a tool of transformation. One that strips away individuality and binds a man to a cause he can never fully comprehend. This system operates on the principle that true authority must be invisible, its mechanisms hidden behind layers of dogma and ritual. The 19 did not vanish by accident. They were absorbed into a hierarchy so secret that its existence remains officially denied. The power they encountered beneath the seminary's altar was neither divine nor holy. It was an ancient force, a psychological mechanism designed to break the spirit and remold it as a weaponized servant. Look closely at the signs, the repeated patterns in religious institutions around the world, the secret rites, the mysterious disappearances. These are not coincidences. They are the blueprint of a hidden order whose roots stretch back into prehistory, into the dark corners of human consciousness where fear and obedience entwine. And yet, even as this order demands silence, cracks begin to form in its facade. The 20th witness mentioned in that cryptic note, whoever he was, lived burdened by a truth too heavy to bear alone. His existence, though shrouded in mystery, is the key to unraveling the secret. Stories whispered in secret corners tell of a survivor, a man who escaped the abyss beneath St. Augustine's Seminary, carrying fragments of knowledge that could dismantle the shadow clergy. But he was hunted, discredited, and silenced before he could reveal what he knew. This pattern repeats. Those who dare expose the truth about the hidden orders find themselves erased, their reputations destroyed, their voices drowned by institutional power. It's a pattern that extends beyond religion into governments, corporations, and intelligence agencies. The 19 seminarians who disappeared were the first casualties, but they are far from the last. They were pioneers of a dark transformation, sacrifices for an agenda that manipulates faith, fear, and loyalty on a scale few can imagine. The psychological control embedded in this hidden hierarchy exploits the deepest human needs, the desire for belonging, for purpose, for transcendence. Promises enlightenment but delivers enslavement. The rituals, the secret knowledge, the enforced silence, these are weapons in a war for the soul. Each generation is conditioned to obey without question, to serve invisible masters who pull strings from the shadows. This manipulation extends into modern times, where spiritual leaders act as gatekeepers, maintaining the illusion of divine authority while perpetuating systems of control that benefit a select few. The lost ordination class is a chilling example of how easily faith can be weaponized, how men who seek to serve can become pawns in a game of power far older and darker than the church itself. It is vital to understand the mechanisms of this control if you are to break free from it. The first is silence, an absolute, enforced silence that isolates the individual and prevents collective awakening. The second is the ritualization of obedience, where questioning becomes sacrilege and doubt is punished not only socially but spiritually. The third is the use of fear, fear of damnation, fear of exclusion, fear of the unknown, to bind men to a system that serves others' interests, not their own. The 19 seminarians learned these lessons too late. Their disappearance serves as a stark warning. Obedience without awareness is a pathway to disappearance, of identity, of autonomy, of life itself. But knowledge is the first step toward freedom. The story of the lost ordination class is not just a dark chapter of history. It is a mirror reflecting the structures that still hold power over millions today. To resist is to awaken, to recognize the subtle chains of psychological manipulation disguised as faith. It requires courage to face uncomfortable truths, to question sacred narratives, and to reclaim the right to think, feel, and believe on your own terms. In that sense, the tale of the 19 lost priests is also a call to arms, a summons to break the silence and expose the shadows lurking beneath the surface of power. As we descend further, understand this: the forces behind the lost ordination class are not confined to one seminary or one faith. They are part of a global network, interwoven through secret societies, hidden cults, and elite organizations that use spiritual control as a key to maintain influence. These forces exploit the human need for meaning, turning spiritual devotion into a form of psychological bondage. They thrive in the spaces between belief and doubt, between revelation and secrecy, wielding ancient rites and symbols to legitimize their power. The 19 seminarians became unwitting initiates into this world, sacrificed to its dark mechanisms, their disappearance a price paid for its continuation. Consider the symbolism of the 13th figure, always seen but never named, cloaked in black vestments, face hidden in shadow. This figure represents the gatekeeper, the shadow master who controls the ritual threshold, the point at which innocence is lost and submission begins. He is the living embodiment of the dark covenant that binds the initiated, the enforcer of obedience beyond the reach of earthly authority. The seminarians' visions of him were both a warning and a summons, an invitation to transcend mortal understanding at a cost no man could foresee. He is the one who calls, the one who judges, the one who seals the fate of those who cross the threshold. The basement beneath St. Augustine is more than an architectural anomaly. It is a crypt of forgotten oaths, a chamber where the old gods and new orders intersect, a liminal space bridging mortal faith and occult power. The symbols etched into its walls are not mere decoration but seals of binding, arcane glyphs designed to trap souls, rewrite wills, and enforce loyalty. The scent that lingers there is a residue of the ritual, an olfactory imprint of sacrifice, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The 19 seminarians entered this space willingly, stepping into a darkness that claimed their bodies and shattered their souls. What lessons can we draw from this? That power disguised as holiness is the most dangerous form of tyranny. That institutions built on faith can be corrupted from within by forces that do not serve the divine, but themselves. That obedience without understanding leads to loss, the loss of freedom, of identity, of life, but also that truth has a stubborn persistence. It seeps through the cracks of silence, flickers in the shadows, waits for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. The story of the lost ordination class is a beacon for those willing to look beyond the veil. In modern times, you will find echoes of this hidden power everywhere. In the silent oaths of secret societies, in the coded rituals of elite clubs, in the dark corridors of political and religious institutions. The puppeteers who control these forces thrive on secrecy and division, pitting faith against reason, obedience against awakening. They feed on fear and maintain their grip by hiding behind sacred masks. But every mask has a crack. Every shadow yields to light. The 19 lost priests remind us that the price of silence is eternal disappearance, but the price of awareness is revolution. Now, listen closely, because here lies the heart of the matter, the mechanism that makes all this possible. The deliberate erasure of memory. Not just forgetting, but enforced amnesia. The lost ordination class was never just about physical disappearance. It was about wiping clean their very existence from the collective mind. The official narrative, the fabricated fire, the sealed basement, all tools to sever their names, their faces, their souls from history. This is a pattern repeated again and again. When truths threaten the pillars of power, they vanish. Not just the people, but every record, every whisper, every shadow of their being. The architects of control understand that what cannot be remembered cannot be reclaimed. And yet, beneath this enforced oblivion, the echo of their sacrifice resonates, haunting the halls of power like a ghost no ritual can fully silence. And this brings us to the most insidious weapon of all, deception dressed as faith. The system cloaks itself in sanctity, commanding reverence while cultivating submission. It uses symbols, crosses, vestments, sacred texts as chains to bind the mind, to shape obedience into a weapon against the self. The 19 were not merely seminarians. They were initiates, stripped of autonomy and repurposed as vessels for a higher, darker agenda. The rituals they performed were not for salvation but for surrender. Their final prayers, their visions, their disappearances, all parts of a grand design to transform innocence into controlled servitude. It is here you must ask yourself, how many others have walked this path, silent and unseen, sacrificed on altars of power disguised as devotion? We are now halfway through this journey into forbidden knowledge. To anchor this transformation in your own consciousness, type the phrase, "I walk the shadow path," twice in the comments. This symbolic act is more than engagement. It is a declaration, a seal upon your awakening. Because once you see the gears turning beneath the surface, once the veil is lifted, there is no going back. You will carry the burden of truth, and with it, the responsibility to question, to resist, to reclaim. The 19 priests who never said their first Mass are a gateway, not just to a hidden past, but to a deeper understanding of how power corrupts faith and how institutions weaponize belief. Their story is etched not only in the faded photographs and sealed basements, but in every whispered secret and buried conspiracy. It is a testament to the price paid when obedience eclipses awareness. Understanding their fate forces a reckoning with the forces that shape our world today. Forces that thrive in darkness, flourish in silence, and prey on those who surrender without question. Imagine, for a moment, the psychological torment the 19 faced in their final hours. The weight of forbidden knowledge crushing their spirits. The pull of a destiny they never chose but were irrevocably bound to. Their disappearance was not only physical but spiritual. The breaking of their vows, the severing of their ties to the earthly church, and the beginning of a servitude to something beyond mortal comprehension. They were the first casualties in a war not fought with weapons, but with minds, a battle for control over belief, identity, and ultimately the soul. This dark history reveals a hidden architecture of control, built on fear, silence, and ritual. An architecture that extends beyond the walls of St. Augustine's Seminary, reaching into the very fabric of society. You see its echoes in secret handshakes, in the coded language of power, in the invisible hierarchies that govern not only religion but politics, finance, and culture. The lost ordination class is a chilling reminder that beneath every institution lies a network of influence designed to preserve itself at all costs, even if it means erasing its own. And yet, what if the 19 are not entirely lost? What if their disappearance marks not an end but a transformation? Some legends speak of them continuing their service in realms beyond our perception. Shadow priests enacting a mysterious will, guardians of a dark covenant. This myth, whether true or fabricated, reveals the psychological need to explain the inexplicable, to assign meaning to loss and mystery. It warns us that the forces they touched are not idle, that the covenant they entered demands vigilance from those who walk the path of truth. The symbolic 13th witness, the shadow figure, remains the key to unlocking this enigma. Who was he? A survivor? A betrayer? A dark guardian? His silence is the greatest mystery, his presence the darkest omen. He represents the invisible hand guiding the ritual, the eternal watcher ensuring the pact is upheld. And for you, the seeker of forbidden knowledge, he embodies the ultimate challenge, to confront the shadows within and without. The chapel's stone altar, moved to reveal a hidden passage, is itself a metaphor, a threshold between the known and the unknown, between faith and fear. It is a portal to the subterranean world where ancient forces converge, where rituals of sacrifice and power unfold beyond human sight. This hidden chamber beneath the seminary symbolizes the buried truth society refuses to face, the dark roots from which all institutions grow. By stepping into this chamber, the 19 stepped into a realm where light fades and shadows rule, a place where transformation demands the highest price. What the Church's official records do not reveal is the extent of the cover-up. The charred East Wing was a convenient smokescreen, a physical manifestation of the erasure that followed. Documents were altered, witnesses silenced, and the truth buried beneath layers of lies. This manipulation was not an act of protection but of preservation, for the institution's power, for its hidden masters. The disappearance of the lost ordination class was rewritten to fit a narrative palatable to the faithful, while the true story faded into whispered myth. Here lies the ultimate danger of obedience without awareness, the sacrifice of self to faceless power. The 19 who vanished were swallowed not by fire, but by an ancient mechanism of control that feeds on faith to sustain itself. Their story warns us that submission without understanding is a gateway to disappearance. But it also offers a path forward, a call to awaken, to question, to reclaim. Because power thrives in darkness, but truth burns brightest when revealed. To the men watching now, obsessed with secrets, mastery, and elite knowledge, this is your moment. You stand at the edge of revelation, the cusp of transformation. The story of the lost ordination class is more than history. It is a mirror reflecting the hidden forces that shape your world. Will you choose to walk the shadow path, to face the uncomfortable truths, to break the chains of silence? Or will you turn away, content to remain a pawn in a game you do not understand? Remember this, once knowledge takes root, it changes everything. You cannot unsee what you have seen, nor unknow what you have learned. The 19 priests who never said their first Mass are no longer just names or faces in a forgotten photo. They are a warning, a symbol, and a call to action. Their sacrifice unlocks the door to a deeper reality, one where power, faith, and control intertwine in a dance as old as humanity itself. Now, with eyes wide open, you are no longer a bystander. You are part of the story, and the shadows are watching,